This will be a very interesting final game of the season. Well, of the preseason for the Bengals here. Because there's not many players that I think are still kind of on that bubble to a certain degree. Let's talk about it. So starting off right away, at the receiver core, really, I think we're locked in. I don't think, no matter how this preseason game goes, keep in mind this Colts game, we will not be starting any starters. We'll all be third string, fourth string guys. But at this moment in time, the quarterback position really is locked in. Jake Browning, Joe Burrow, done. Wide receiver position, it's going to be Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Jermaine Burton. Well, it would be Yoshi actually, third guy. Third guy is Yoshi. Fourth guy, Trenton Irwin. Fifth guy is going to be Jermaine Burton. And sixth guy is Chuck Sizzle. There really isn't any competition to say we're going to go with Cole Burgess here or we're going to go with Kendrick Byer, Kwame, or Cedric Jackson. It really just isn't a real actual talking point here. Kendrick Pryor is also questionable for this game, so doesn't really help out much in that context either. So, tight ends. Tanner McLaughlin is still on the, I guess you could call him bubble, and it's very possible we don't end up keeping Tanner McLaughlin. I did make my 53-man roster video. I did say I thought we were going to keep 5 tight ends, and a lot of people gave me pushback. But hear me out on this one. Drew Sample potentially could just become fullback, and he really is a fullback. We utilize him as more of a blocking tight end / fullback anyway, so there really isn't 5 tight ends we're keeping anyway. We're actually only keeping, in theory, 4 tight ends going into this year. So utilizing Mike Gesicki more as a, kind of vertical threat type of tight end. We saw him blocking in preseason week 1. Did not look that good, but it's okay. We know he's a vertical threat tight end. Eric All, a little bit better of a blocker. Obviously, Tanner Hudson, more of a vertical threat tight end. We like to use our 2 tight end formations. Drew Sample. I just feel like keeping 4 tight ends isn't really that crazy if you look at Drew Sample more as a fullback. But if they're trying to utilize him more as a tight end and a pure blocking tight end and they don't move to fullback, Tanner McLaughlin is definitely on the, crevices here. But I'll be honest with you, he didn't really do much the first 2 games of the season. So even if he has like a really good game this week, I highly doubt that will kind of move the needle when it comes to whether or not they keep him or not. One thing I will say, though, is that if he does have a big game, I think he is kind of on that bubble as, if they want to keep another position, let's say extra depth the offensive line, he would be the first guy to go. But here's another reason why I think we might end up keeping him. The running back position. We know already it's going to be Zach Moss, it's going to be Chase Brown, and our third guy is going to be Travion Williams. Now, in the past, many, many times, we have kept 4 running backs. Well, Chris Evans is out for the season, so we're not going to have a 4th running back, which would leave us with an extra spot available, which again could be Tanner McLaughlin. He is a good vertical threat slot tight end, and that's kind of what we so far have seemingly want to do. We want to go ahead and utilize as many players in a slot in a rotation to kind of keep everyone fresh. So, offensive line. Jackson Carman. Sad part is he's probably going to make the roster. Not because we invested a 2nd round pick in him and, and that's a lot of capital. It's because of the fact that, one, Frank Pollock likes him a lot, even though he's not the greatest. And he's also really good in zone run. And I think because of that, it's very possible he makes the roster. Eric Miller is another guy. He's a tackle that we got that really hasn't been showing off too crazy insane. Jackson Kirkland potentially could, get the job, but last year he kind of struggled. This year he's been okay in preseason. He's another one of those roster bubble guys. I will say when it comes to this last game, the most important on offense is going to be the offensive line. That's really what's going to be the most important. But because of Deontay Smith going down with injury, it's going to come down to a couple players on this roster bubble. And these are players you really want to watch for when it comes to this game. Number 1, Devin Cochran. Number 2, Jackson Carman. Number 3 is going to be Jackson Kirkland. Those are the 3 guys. I think Matt Lee is almost 100% a lock to make this roster. Obviously, you already know we're going to keep the starters, and we're going to keep 2 right tackles. But with that being said, and also I think Cody Ford's a lock to make this roster as well. But those 3 guys, Kirkland, Carman, and you could even say, if you really wanted to, you could also put in, what's his name? I can't think of his name for some reason. Our 3rd string center. Yeah, I'll put him in there too. I can't think of his name for some odd reason. But those are, Nate Gilliam. See, now we're kind of done. I don't think okay, so here's what I'll say. Bubble spot for offensive line. Trey Hill, Jackson Carman, Nate Gilliam, Jackson Kirkland, Devin Cochran. Those 5 guys are currently in that roster bubble. This game will determine who makes the roster on that. And also how much depth we have at that position. Now, defensively, cornerback-wise, I think we're kind of set with how we're going to do things. We might have some rotation differently. Poison Ivy's been out. He's still recovering. We're not going to cut the guy. Other than Poison Ivy and that secondary, safety position is another really big thing here. Tyson Anderson had his first game last game. Didn't do much, but he played for the first time this preseason after coming back from, his injury. So if Tyson plays really good this game, it's very possible he could make the roster. He's really great on special teams, and if he has a really great special teams performance, potentially he could. Problem is, Anthony is playing out of his damn mind. And as long as Anthony plays out of his damn mind in this upcoming game versus the Colts, it's very possible that Anthony could find himself on the roster. We could keep 5 safeties if we really wanted to. Again, that kind of speaks into the more of, well, will we keep Tanner McLaughlin because, the amount of players. Defensive line with our injuries, I think everyone, for the most part, is kind of set on the defensive line. Linebacking core, obviously, we're going to keep our boy Moa. But outside of that, Joe Bacci is going to be a little bit of a bubble player for this upcoming game. Shaka Haywood and kind of those guys, too. Again, bubble players. I will say there isn't much I really want out of this game when it comes against the Colts here, because it's going to be 3rd and 4th string guys. I'm not sure if they're starting their starters or starting their 2nd strings, but at the end of the day, they start their 2nd strings. They're going to have Joe Flacco in there anyway. I will say that with this game, this is, again, just a kind of a roster bubble finale. For those who own the roster bubble trying to make a squad, this is your chance. But as I've said many times, I feel like at least 48 out of 53 men on this roster is already solidified. I think there might be 5 spots available and like 30 players competing. And that's just, it is what it is. That's just how football works. I feel like this year I'm more kind of 100%, I'd say more 100%, ready for the 53-man roster. And I feel like for the most part, we know who it's going to be. So I'm more confident this year than many other years because I feel like it's just kind of like, okay, this is guaranteed. Like, this is going to be it. This is how it's going to work. And this is how everything's going to set up. But we'll have to wait and see because obviously this last game will tell stuff. But again, consistency is everything. And this last game's not going to, wipe away the first 2 weeks being kind of, rubbish for that said reason. Final player I will talk about in this video is Cedric Johnson. He was our 6th round draft pick. He's also going to get a chance in this game to kind of play outside of his mind and see if he can potentially make the roster as well. He's another guy who's really going to take advantage of the situation that there's injuries. And injuries definitely, helps out a player on that roster bubble as well. Guys, tell me down below your thoughts and opinions. I'll see you guys next one. Hoo-day!